Growing up and living in a big city close to a metropolis like Istanbul made me realize that one of my favorite childhood memories was visiting my grandmother in village. So here is my photo with my grand. Yeah, I love her so much and I really love my village. Because in village, I could see nature up close, playing with the farm's animal in the fields, or maybe just watch the farmers in the garden. However, as I've spent more and more time away from the village, I've come to realize that there's a real boundaries between the city and the countryside. With all the globalization and the increasing of urbanization, the rural seems to be becoming more and more alienated, forgotten, and neglected. So, from this small memory and realization that the big story of my project started. Then, this project will actually tell a story of a rural journey, a story that represents the difficulties of rural challenges from various threats of extinction, starting with the concepts of duality that discredits the rural to the concepts of future rural scenarios that are full of hope, sustainable, and eternal. So, with a great pride, I'm Rifqi, and I'm presenting to you a tale of rurality. Basically, the initial idea for this project actually came from a quote by William in 1973 that said, in the beginning, the concepts of rural was always associated with something that did not belong to the city, or something that the opposites of the city. Something that if it belonged to the city, so it did not belong to the countryside. However, with the developments of technologies and especially the industrialization, the rural was slowly used to meet the needs of the cities until it was transformed into the agricultural and industrial areas. Then this actually leads to the question, if a serious thing like industrialization can change the meaning of rural in such a way as to produce new definitions of rural, so to what other things can the rural be reflected back in such a way as to produce a new conceptions of rural? So here is from this question actually, that the history of rural continues. Then, as we have already known, in the recent decades, one of greatest challenges facing our human civilization has been the climate change or the climate crisis. With several countries experiencing record-breaking summer temperatures this year, droughts in many parts of the world, causing and exacerbating forest fire, the intense rainfall, and the flash floods, the drastic shrinking of polar glaciers, and rising sea levels, all of this is becoming increasingly alarming. So, this is what I have chosen as a tipping point or a triggering point that will redefine the concepts of rural. The extent to which the problems of climate crisis, especially the rising sea level, can determine a new direction of future rural scenario. So, in his TED Talks, Bjarke Ingels once said that the human body is 70% water, and the surface of our planet is also 70% water, and it keeps increasing. And even if the rest of the world wakes up tomorrow and becomes carbon neutral overnight, there are island nations that are destined to sink into the ocean unless we also develop an alternative form of floating human habitat. So, no matter how critical the crisis will be in the future, one thing I do understand is that we will always have the power to adapt to change, and we have the power to shape our own future. So I think here is the hope that there will always be strategies for our civilizational change. And let just architecture make all these things happen. Then the story continued when I had to decide the case study that will represent the developments of this project. And one of the rural area with the highest intensities of raising sea level problem in Türkiye is the coastal area of Akraba Beach in Yalova. It is generally filled with some settlements, the agricultural land, and the rest of the area is the greenery natural areas. The only reason why this area is threatened by sea level rise is because of its coastal location and the flat of its topography. As the sea level rises exponentially, it is projected that 2 to 3 of Akraba coastal area will be submerged by the end of the century. Then, as a solution, with the reference to Bjarkängel's floating city and Kiyonori Kikutake's marine city project, as well as considering the gradual and natural long terms of the problem, so as a solution, we had to formulate it a more gradually and a long-term solution, where I proposed my own version of reset strategy that combines 3 main points of my project. It is retrovert, reinforce, and regenerate. So basically, in a simple idea, my project is applying living on the sea or living above the sea approaches in order to preserving the story of rural, where the floating platform structure will be applied in several predetermined points in order to form a new rural ecosystem above the sea and become the beginning of a new phase of rural future scenarios. Let's start with the first strategy we have, retrovert. In this phase, with the aim to protecting the main programs of the rural, the agricultural area is conserved along with the settlements, where the main functions of the platform will represent most of the earlier area. Then considering all needs and urgencies that will be faced to form a new resilient rural ecosystem, the secondary function offered is the center of renewable energy management through water conservation system. And the rest of the area will be centered as public area and a control tower. Then on the other hand, every horizontal and vertical connecting elements are also well integrated, are articulated to make all areas well integrated, where every element will represent it symbolically with the color of its own interrelated elements. And every element, in addition to emphasizing its identity function, the color also aims to triggering a different experience when visiting every areas. And then, in the next strategy, we have reinforce. With the hope that the rural can survive resiliently and sustainably in the future, and also to serve a better human living environment, the Conservation Center of Renewable Sources will be chosen as the main supporting program after the agricultural sector. In the case to meet the energy needs of the rural, the renewable energy sources will be focused on several natural elements around, including the solar thermal power generation, wind power generation, and the wave or ocean current power generation. And then in the water management plan, will also be maximized with 3 main water sources. It is the rainwater, the wastewater, and seawater. Even in the agricultural area, the lack of land doesn't prevent the rural from continuing to survive. Some technological development are further developed in this sector in such aeroponic and aquaponic systems. Then in formulating a more detailed strategy, I'm trying to visualize a schematic design that will represent the connecting system of every element, where every element will has a specific and its shared elements, where every specific elements are related to its water characteristic. And then, this water management plan will start with different sources and different treatment pattern. For example, in seawater treatment, the reverse osmosis method is the specific element applied. And in the wastewater treatment, the sedimentation method is also will combine to maximize the clean process of water management system. Then all this energy and water sources will support all the needs in the agricultural and domestic purposes. And then in the last strategy, we have regenerate. So in this phase, the focus is on transforming this disaster into a blessing for rural in the future. So when soil and other materials become scarce, but at the same time, the needs of new materials are always increasing, then the new materials will be created by utilizing salt crystallization from seawater. So in the near future, in a time of unbridled technological development, the new material will be created by combining salt crystallization with other materials. And in some section details, I'm trying to create a smaller and more simple units to form a more adaptive and large-scale structure. And as a conclusion, I want to share a little story. When I was a kid, I always told my grandmother that I wanted to become a superhero. I wanted to be like a Spider-Man. Yeah, because I wanted to bring something better to the world. I want to help people. I want to change the world. But yeah, as time goes by, of course, this dream is not going to come true, to become a Spider-Man, because I've never been bitten by a spider. But when I study architecture, this hope suddenly comes back. Because I believe with architecture, I still can help people. I still can change the world, and I still can bring something better to the world through architecture and through our revolutionary and creative vision as a young designer. So I think this is how our rural story ends. But in real life, of course, this rural story will always continue into the never-ending future. So to conclude, let us press the reset button with an alternative scenarios of future rural concept with a tale of rurality. I'm Rifqi Fadhilah, proudly representing Türkiye. Herkese teşekkür ederim.